So potential is the amount of work done in carrying a unit charge from one point to another. So whenever a charge is carried from one point to another, this charge is flowing, and flowing charge contributes to current. So whenever there is potential, whenever there is work done to carry a single charge or any amount of charge from one point to another, certain amount of work is done, and that work contributes towards potential, and that potential contributes towards current, because this potential is causing the electron or the charges to flow from point A to point B. So whenever there is a flow of charge, we always get current, always and always get current. Okay, so this is the first basic definitions. Then we have the SI units. SI units, SI units, bro. We have charge. Charge to SI unit is coulomb. COULOUMB, coulomb, C. Right. Then we have current. Current is Q by T, right? So Q is coulomb per second. So it is coulomb second inverse, or we generally call this as ampere. Voltage is work done per charge. Work done ko SI unit is joule. Charge ko is coulomb. So this is joule coulomb inverse. Sometimes most of the time call this volt. These are the SI units that you need to know by heart. Okay, then we did this. Then I explained you about current. I explained you about voltage. Now the thing left is resistance. So what is resistance? Resistance is basically the obstruction offered to the flow of electron, offered to the flow of electron. So basically electrons are the charge carriers, right? Charge carriers, right? And these are the ones that are responsible for carrying current, for bringing out current in a system. So if an electron flows from one end to other, it'll carry current. It'll result in the formation of current, right? So resistance is basically you're obstructing the flow of electron. You are not making the path of the electron easy. You are making the path of electron straightforward. It has to go here. It'll collide with some atoms. It'll go up. It'll go again. Go here. It'll again collide with some atoms. Come down. Go this way. So this phenomenon where the path of the electron is obstructed and eventually leading to reduction in the current flow, reduction in the current in the system is known as resistance. Resistance is obstruction offered to the flow of electron. So if you're obstructing the flow of electron, basically you're obstructing current, right? If you're obstructing the flow of electron, you're basically obstructing current. So resistance is the obstruction offered to the flow of electron. Even the best of the best conductors like iron, copper, etc. have resistance. Okay, they have resistance. It is a quantity that we cannot remove in our daily application processes, right? We can't remove the resistance completely. We can try to reduce it by using some methods which I'll discuss later, but we cannot completely remove resistance. It is not possible. It is there. It will always be there, right? Only on like extremely low temperatures will conductors they'll not resist. Extremely low temperatures, they'll not resist. The resistance will be extremely negligible. But in room temperatures, in our daily life applications, it is practically very difficult to like completely remove the resistance. Not difficult, it is impossible to remove the resistance in daily life application. We can just reduce it to some extent. Okay, so resistance is always there. Now, after studying all the three concepts, we have Ohm's law. So Ohm's law is basically voltage influences current. The rate at which voltage changes, current will also change in the same way. If voltage increases, current will increase. If voltage decreases, current will decrease, right? But if the voltage increases if the voltage increases from 0 to 220 volt, current will not go from 0 to 220 volt. Current will be limited, right? Current has to be limited. Our current limit bhayne, if current is not limited in our application, in whatever it is, if current is not limited, it'll be a big problem, because high current can cause severe shock, burn, and damage, right? You can actually die by getting electrocuted. So what happens is this proportionality sign changes into equal to, and there is a constant factor that comes in is known as resistance. So now resistance will limit the current. How you'll say? If voltage is 220, I can have a current of 2.2 ampere. So in this case, my resistance will be 100 into 2.2. So 220 will be equal to 220. So left hand side equal to right hand side. So this thing, resistance will help limit current this way. So if you have a voltage of 220, you can have a current of 2.2. So the remaining part will be compensated by resistance. So resistance is the one that that limits the current in the system. So if resistance was not there and there would be no limit in current, it would be very difficult to use electricity in daily appliances, because if there was like minor openings in the wire and you like by mistake touch it, you'd be electrocuted to death. Okay, so V equal to IR is Ohm's law, where voltage is directly proportional to current, and but the current is limited, and it is limited by the addition of resistance. It is always limited by resistance. The current value will not go as high as the voltage value. The current, the voltage jati high huncha, current त्यत्रो high पुग्न सक्दैन, because that value is limited by the resistance. Okay, this has to be very clear to you. And there are conductors that obey the Ohm's law and that do not obey the Ohm's law. So we have ohmic conductors and non-ohmic conductors. So for an ohmic conductor, VI graph. So VI graph will be a straight line. But for a non-ohmic conductor, your VI graph will not be a straight line. It will be some curve, something like this, right? So these do not obey the Ohm's law. Do not obey Ohm's law. And these obey the Ohm's law. Okay. So ohmic conductors and non-ohmic conductors are there. Ohmic conductors are the ones that obey the Ohm's law, and non-ohmic conductors are the ones that do not obey the Ohm's law. So this you have to remember this. And next thing is factors affecting resistance. So I'll share you all the slides. You can revise it once. Factors affecting resistance. So I had told you 3 factors. First one is heat. Second one is length. Third one is area. So heat directly influences resistance. So if you increase the heat, resistance will also increase, because when you increase the heat, when you increase the enthalpy of a system, the randomness will also increase. So heat, like we can term heat as enthalpy as well. Enthalpy is some sort of energy, and if you increase the enthalpy, or if you increase the heat of a system, heat badhayo bhane your system भित्रको particles or the atoms or the molecules, whatever the system has, will start vibrating more, will start oscillating more, right? If they were vibrating at like a smaller rate, after supplying energy, that energy has to translate to something. That energy has to store or translate into something, and that energy is translated in the form of atoms moving, and that moving atom causes the body to heat, right? So whenever heat is applied to a system, the atomic movement or the molecular movement increases. That causes the increase in resistance. So this is part of derivation sign. You just need to know the thing. Resistance is directly proportional to length. If you increase the length, it will increase the resistance, because it is very simple if you try to understand this. So I want to move an electron from here to here and here to here. So if this takes T1 time to reach, electron takes T1 time to reach here to here, and this takes T2 time, which one will be greater? Obviously T2 will be greater, right? Because T2 is a longer wire. They are same wire of the same material, but only difference is the second wire is double double the length of the first wire. So if the electron takes T1 in the first wire, time T1 to reach this point, in this point, electron will take T2 time to reach this way. So now this will have higher current. So if this is I1 and this is I2, then I1 will be greater than I2. So if current is more, resistance is less. If current is less, resistance is a little bit more. So length will directly affect resistance. If the length is more, your resistance will increase, right? So it is clearly, you can clearly visualize it from your time. Basically, this if time taken by the electron to move from one end to other is more, obviously your current is less. So your resistance is higher. Okay. So resistance is directly proportional to length. Resistance is directly affected by length. Area, resistance is inversely proportional to area. So if you increase the thickness of the wire, the resistance will decrease, right? So now we combine both the equations, you get R is directly proportional to L, inversely proportional to A. So now I remove the proportionality sign, put an equal to sign, put a constant. This is the final formula. This thing is known as specific resistance or resistivity. Resistivity or specific resistance. And this thing will only change when there is change in material. Material change will only affect. So this resistivity will not change when there is change in length, change in area, or whatever it is. Resistivity will change only and only if you change the material of the wire, right? If you change the material. So if I say the same example, okay, so these two wires, this is the first wire, this is the second wire, they're exactly made from the same wire, same copper wire, right? And this has a resistivity of rho1, this has a resistivity of rho2. So what will be the relationship between resistivity 1 and resistivity 2? So you can blindly write resistivity 1 will be equal to resistivity 2 because resistivity only depends on the material of the wire. If the wire is of the same material, duite copper wire, right? Duite are made up of copper. So if they are made up of copper, then obviously the resistivities have to be equal. It is mandatory for the resistivities to be equal. Only when there is change in the material of the wire, the resistivity will change. Correct? So this is the thing you need to know from this part. Then we have next part of the chapter. We had next part of the chapter where we did EMF, terminal potential difference, and internal resistance. So EMF is the maximum potential that a battery can supply. This will be equal to what actually the battery supplies, that is terminal potential difference plus energy loss or potential lost in internal resistance. So there is a battery. So this battery has an ability to supply 1.5 volt, right? So this 1.5 volt is the EMF. But now if I tap the ends of this using a voltmeter, and I find that the voltage, actual voltage that the battery is supplying is 1.4 volt. So this actual voltage is the 1.4 volt. This is known as the terminal potential difference. So the remaining 0.1 volt is lost inside the battery by overcoming the small internal resistance of the battery. So this is the internal resistance. This is the remaining 0.1 volt. So I'll write it again. EMF equal to terminal potential difference plus current into internal resistance, small letter r. So this is the one formula that is extremely important. Then we have combination of resistors. Combination of resistors. First one is series connection. In series connection, we have three like resistors in continuous, like in single one motion, they are like connected end over end, right? So if a current is flowing from this direction, it has to go through all the resistors and come out from here, right? So for this, the total resistance or equivalent resistance will be equal to R1 plus R2 plus R3 dot dot dot. How many more the resistors? How many more resistors are there? Just you need to add it. Then 2 is parallel. Parallel where you have resistors like this. This is R1, this is R2, this is R3. So the total equivalent resistance is 1 by R equivalent equal to 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2 plus 1 by R3 plus dot dot dot. So there are two things you need to know in series. Current remains same and voltage divides. Voltage divides, which means every one of these resistance will get different voltage, but they'll get the same current, I. In parallel, current divides, V is constant, which means every resistor will get the same voltage, V, but the current will be I1, I2, and I3. Okay. So we go to the next part of the chapter. So this part is all these are already completed by me, like in the normal offline classes. I'm just revising it so that you can be familiar with it more. If you want me to revise it again, I can revise it again. Next is electric power, power and energy. First, energy. Electrical energy can be expressed as V into I into T. Okay, energy can be expressed as V into I into T, or we can express it in different way. V ko badli I can put IR from Ohm's law. So I into R into I into T. So you get energy will be equal to I squared into R into T. So this is the first formula. This is the second formula. So I can replace I as well in this. So I will be equal to V by R. So in the first relation, I replace I now, V by R into T. So energy equal to V squared by R into T. So this is the third formula. Now power is nothing but energy by time. So power formula will be energy divided by time will be V into I. Power will be equal to I squared into R. Power will be equal to V squared by R. So these are the formulas that you need to remember from power and energy. Very simple, very, very simple. You need to remember one conversion as well. 1 watt hour equal to 3600 joule. And 1 kilowatt hour will be equal to 3.6 into 10 to the power 6 joule. Yeah, 3.6 into 10 to the power 6 joule. So there may be questions where you need to convert 1 watt hour, 2 watt hour, 1 kilowatt hour into joules. So this is the conversion you need to remember. So this is the numerical part of the chapter. Then we have theory part where we study the power transmission. Power, I'll send you all the slides, okay? Transmission after the class. Power transmission. So we have power generation, that is 33 kilovolt is generated at the turbine, hydropower or nuclear power, whatever it is. Then it goes to a main substation, I guess, grid substation, where 33 kilovolt is converted to 132 kilovolt. This is grid substation. Now this is transmitted in the form of wires. This is transmission. This is the transmission phase, transmission. Then it goes to intermediate substation, main substation, sorry. Then 132 kilovolt is reduced back to 33 kilovolt, in the main substation, right? So now this 33 kilovolt, some part of the 33 kilovolt goes to heavy industries, and the remaining goes to another substation known as the intermediate substation, where 33 kilovolt is converted to 11 kilovolt. So this is intermediate substation. Then this goes to small factories, small industries. Then Then the remaining 11 kilovolt is converted to 220 volt in the city substation, I guess. This is known as city substation. Yeah, city substation. Then it goes to our houses. So transmission process 80 step now. They're very simple. Turbines turbines generate 33 kilovolt that goes to the grid substation, where it is converted into 1 to a 32 or 133 kilovolt. Then it goes through transmission phase, where it's transmitted through like huge towers entire across cities and countries. And after that, it goes to the main substation, where it is dropped down or stepped down back to 33 kilovolt. And 33 kilovolt goes to like heavy industries, heavy car industries, maybe factories and all those things. Then it goes to the intermediate substation, where 33 kilovolt is converted to 11 kilovolt, and that goes to small industries. Then it goes to the city substation, where the 11 kilovolt is converted to 220 volt, and it goes to all the houses which use electrical appliances, right? So I had told you about advantages and disadvantages of parallel connection. So what we need to know is parallel connection, now we get the same voltage. So one advantage, main advantage is voltage is not divided. Voltage is not divided. Okay, voltage is not divided. Second one, I'll tell you, just need to remember. So in series connection, what happens is in series connection, so if these are 3 bulbs connected in series, if this one just stops working, so if this one is like disconnected or this stops working, then these two will also stop working. But parallel, if you have connections in parallel, if one of the appliance stops working, this stops working, the other two will be functional, will not have any problem, right? So parallel is very, very useful because voltage is not divided, right? If one of the appliance stops working, it'll not hamper the other two or other how many appliances you have connected in parallel, right? It doesn't matter. So if one appliance stops working, the other will continue working. It will not be a problem, right? And series connection delivers like very less amount of power. This first appliance will take maximum power. The second one will take a little less, and this will get the least. So if you have 3 bulbs connected in series, the last bulb will glow the dimmest, right? Even if it is the highest rated bulb, it will glow the dimmest. So series connection is not good in these cases. House wiring method, it is like non-practical at all. Series connection is totally not practical because if you have a large power appliance like a heater or a geyser or something like that, if you turn on the geyser, if you have connected everything in series, then all of your bulbs will like dim out, and it'll be like half of the brightness. So series connection is totally not practical in like house appliances and house wiring system. So after this, we did fuse, right? We did fuse. Fuse is basically something that is connected in the live wire, and this thing prevents the house from burning. So if there is like heavy current flowing, this fuse wire will get heated up and it'll just break up, right? It'll just open up. So what happens is the live current is not flowing now. The live current goes here, and there is no connection here inside the fuse because the fuse has already burnt out. So it will not go inside, and it will not contribute towards any fire now, right? But this kind of things are not used in all like modern wiring systems, MCBs, RCCBs, and breakers. These are basically called breakers. Breakers are used in place of fuse these like in the modern times, but these were like very important during the older times, where high current, heavy current, and short circuit were the reasons, like house caught fire, all those things. So that's the reason why we use fuse those times, right? So fuse wire is basically made up of a metal that has a very low melting point, right? So low melting point, which means when the temperature goes slightly higher than normal, the fuse wire will just open up, it'll just break open, and it'll prevent any like excessive current flowing into the house. So, and it is always connected in the live wire. There are 3 types of wire: live, neutral, and earth. It is always connected in the live wire because if the fuse opens, or if it just breaks in, if we place it in the live wire, the current will not go inside the circuit. So now it'll be safe to touch the appliances. You'll not get shocked. Also, switches are also placed in the live wire. They are placed in the live wire because, like, if again I'm telling you, if something like that happens, if you just turn off the switch, if you have not placed the switch in the live wire, if you have placed the switch in the neutral wire, if you turn off the switch, the light will go off, that is for sure. But the problem is, if you just go and touch the bulb, and if you by mistake touch any metallic ends inside the holder, you'll get shocked, because live wire is continuously bringing current inside the system. Thus the neutral is not taking it back because the switch is in the neutral. So switch has to be always placed in the live wire to prevent any shock, right? Shock or damage. This is that. And then earthing, there are two types of earthing: local earthing and appliance earthing. So local earthing is the one that is done after constructing a house. You construct a house, dig a hole, put a big copper plate in between, connect the copper plate with a wire, and make the soil conducting by putting salt, coal, water, and you, like, after every 3 to 4 years, put water inside the earthing system. So what happens here is, if there is like heavy current flowing in the circuit, the current straight up flows into the ground, because the ground has low resistance, because we made it conducting by adding salt, water, and all those things. So if there is some heavy current flowing in your circuit, it'll flow directly into the earth. It'll not go through your body, it'll go directly into the earth. Also, when there is lightning strikes and all those things, if your house is properly earthed, your appliances will not damage it. Like, appliances will not be damaged. So even if your house is hit by a lightning, the lightning current flows directly from your wires into the ground, right? It will not go to your appliances and break them. But this is very rare, it doesn't happen. And there's appliance earthing. Every appliance will have a earthing port. So this is live, this is neutral, and there's the bigger one, that is earth. This one has a wire that is directly connected to the earth wire that is locally done, right? So what we did the local earthing thing. This earth terminal will be connected to the local earth wire that is dug outside our house, right? So that the earthing thing that is done outside our house. So earthing is basically done to prevent the excessive flow of current, right? If there is some excessive flow of current, in our system, the current will directly flow to the earth wire, through the earth wire to the ground. Right? It'll go through the earth wire to the ground. It'll not shock us. It'll not cause any damage to us. Right? So yeah, this is the complete unit in like 37 minutes. So I have recorded the entire lecture. This video I have recorded entirely, audio and the whiteboard. So I'll be uploading this somewhere, and I'll send you the link. So yeah, this is the entire chapter. There is just one part of the chapter left, which is electromagnetism. Electromagnetism and something is that the last part of the chapter, which I will hopefully take in the offline classes. I'll not take in the online class this one. So the next chapter that I'll start from physics will be modern physics, radioactivity. I'll not start heat and sound, because I want to do those topics during the offline classes, right? So I'll upload this video somewhere, maybe on YouTube itself. So I'll send you the link of the videos, and yeah, if you have any doubts, you can let me know. If you don't have any doubts, you can leave. We'll have our chemistry class at 11.